Orion, Leo, and Atlas were brought to High Ridge Wildlife Sanctuary after their mother passed away. 3 bobcat kittens, barely 2 weeks old, were pulled from the snow, hypothermic, fading, and given almost no chance of survival. But against all odds, they fought through. These kittens didn't just survive, they changed everything. As weeks turned into months, the trio grew into something no one expected. Same mother, same blood, yet they looked nothing alike. Even the veterinarians questioned what they were seeing. What they became, no one could have predicted. Join us as we open the 100 Days log to explore the incredible story of Leo the Red King, Orion the Spotted Jester, and Atlas the Gray Ghost, a trio that defied every expectation. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The blizzard had been relentless that Tuesday, a blinding whiteout that erased the horizon and turned the winding dirt roads leading to High Ridge Wildlife Sanctuary into treacherous ribbons of ice. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, the muffled, oppressive quiet of deep snow that swallows sound. But inside the intake center, the silence was broken by the sharp, rhythmic beeping of monitors and the squeak of rubber shoes on linoleum. 3 neonates. That was the call. Their mother had been found on the side of the highway, a victim of the poor visibility and slick asphalt. A snowplow driver, pausing to check his blade, had spotted the movement in a nearby drift. Not the mother, but 3 tiny, shivering indentations in the snowbank. When the intake team rushed them through the double doors, shaken from the cold and the adrenaline of the transport, the kittens were less than 2 weeks old. They didn't look like apex predators of the American wilderness. They looked like frozen, frosted wool balls, their fur spiked with ice crystals, bodies rigid with severe hypothermia. Dr. Marcus, the head veterinarian whose hands had stitched up everything from eagles to elk, looked grim as he placed them on the heated exam table. The sanctuary's generator hummed in the background, fighting the storm outside. "Core temperature is critical," he murmured, his voice tight. "We need to warm them slowly. If we go too fast, they'll go into shock. Get the warm fluids." For the next 72 hours, the sanctuary was a fortress against the winter. The rehab team worked in shifts, a quiet ballet of heated blankets, subcutaneous fluids, and specialized formula fed through nipples the size of a teardrop. The world outside was a howling void of white, but inside the incubator, it was a glowing amber world of warmth. These were the heart-wrenching hours, the moments where you hold a creature so light it feels like a melting snowflake in your palm, wondering if its next breath will be its last. You don't name them in this phase. You just watch the rise and fall of their tiny ribs. But nature is stubborn. And these 3? They were fighters. As the snow melted into the mud of spring and spring bloomed into the heat of summer, the frozen wool balls thawed out in more ways than one. They opened their eyes, blue at first, then shifting to gold. Their ears perked up, tufted with the signature black ink dip of their species. They weaned from the bottle to meat slurry, then to solid food. They graduated from the incubator to a nursery pen. And then, things got weird. By the time the summer heat hit its peak and the kittens reached the 6-month mark, the staff at High Ridge were scratching their heads. Usually, a litter of bobcats looks like a matched set of luggage. These 3 looked like they had been picked up at a garage sale from 3 different continents. It was time to document this oddity. The social media team decided to launch a campaign. 100 Days of the Bobcat Brothers. And so, the log began. We are officially marking today as day 0 of our observation project. It is mid-August, hot and humid, and the cicadas are buzzing louder than the generator did back in that blizzard. The boys are 6 months old now, technically juveniles, but they still have a lot of growing to do. They were moved today into the intermediate day school enclosure, which offers them more room to climb and, more importantly, bright summer sunlight to really show off these baffling coats. Let's meet the subjects. First, there is Orion. He is the largest of the 3, a bold, boisterous boy who thinks he's 10 feet tall. His coat is startling. It is high contrast, with a tawny background and vivid black rosettes that look more like a leopard's spots than a bobcat's markings. He moves with a heavy, deliberate stomp. Then there is Leo. If Orion is the leopard, Leo is the lion. His coat has turned an incredible fiery rufous color, a deep reddish gold that glows in the August sunset. He has fewer spots, mostly concentrated on his legs, leaving his back a solid sheet of rusted amber. Finally, there is Atlas. Dear, sweet Atlas. He is the smallest, the runt. While his brothers are shouting with color, Atlas is whispering. He is a cool, muted gray, almost silver in the light. His markings are ghostly, barely there, like smoke trapped in fur. He looks like he belongs in that snowstorm from 6 months ago, while his brothers belong in the jungle. Today, they explored the new enclosure. Orion immediately climbed the highest log and fell off. Leo hissed at a butterfly. Atlas sat in the shade of a fern and watched them both with what looked distinctly like judgment. Dr. Marcus came by for a visual checkup today. He stood by the fence, wiping sweat from his forehead, staring at the trio. "You're sure?" he asked Sarah, the sanctuary director. "Sure about what?" "That we didn't accidentally mix up litters in the incubator during the storm? That looks like a lynx, a bobcat, and a very angry house cat." Sarah laughed, but she double-checked the intake logs anyway. Nope. They came in together out of the same snowbank. They nursed together. They are brothers. The divergence is getting more pronounced. Leo's red coat is so bright against the green summer foliage that he has zero camouflage. If he were in the wild, he'd be the worst ambush predator in history. "Here I am," his coat screams. "I am a spicy Cheeto, come fear me." It is fascinating and hilarious to watch how their phenotypes, physical traits, seem to match their personalities. Orion, the spotted one, is high energy and scattered. He's the one who stalks the enrichment toys, pouncing with unnecessary dramatic flair. He is spotty in attention span and movement. Today, he spent 20 minutes trying to catch his own shadow, failed, and then blamed Atlas. Leo, the red one, is fiery. He has a temper. If dinner is late by 30 seconds, Leo is the one vocalizing. A low, guttural growl that sounds like a tiny chainsaw. He is the redhead of the group, full of passion and fury, mostly directed at cardboard boxes. Atlas, the gray one, is the stone. He is immovable, calm, and blends into the shadows. While his brothers waste energy doing parkour off the walls, Atlas finds the coolest rock, melts into it, and observes. He is the brain of the operation. Today, when the keepers hid meatballs inside a puzzle feeder, Orion smashed it, Leo yelled at it, and Atlas waited for them to give up, then calmly reached in and fished out the meat. We posted a photo of the trio napping in a cuddle puddle on the Sanctuary's Facebook page today. The comments section exploded. "That's not a bobcat, that's a Maine Coon," wrote one user about Leo. "The gray one is definitely a Canadian lynx hybrid," insisted another. "Are you sure the mother wasn't a leopard?" asked a third. It is a great teaching moment. We explained that bobcats, Lynx rufus, have incredible genetic diversity. Just like humans have different hair colors within a single family, bobcats can vary wildly in coat color and pattern. It's called phenotypic variation. However, even the staff is taking bets. The maintenance guy, old Jerry, swears Atlas is part ghost. I walked past the cage, didn't see him, turned around, he was staring right at my soul. He's a phantom, I tell you. We tried a new enrichment activity today. Scent of the wild. We sprayed different scents on logs to stimulate their olfactory senses. We used clove, cinnamon, and a little bit of musk. The reaction was mixed. Leo loved the cinnamon. He rubbed his red face all over the log until he looked like he was wearing war paint, drooling happily. Orion attacked the clove log. He shredded the bark, sneezing violently between bites, but refused to stop. Atlas approached the musk log. He sniffed it once, wrinkled his nose in visible disgust, a scrunch of the snout that exposed his tiny front teeth, and then turned around and buried the log with dirt, just like a cat using a litter box. He looked at us through the fence as if to say, "Do better." Because the hybrid truthers online wouldn't let it rest, and because Dr. Marcus is a man of science who hates unsolved mysteries, we ran a genetic panel. We swabbed 3 reluctant mouths. Leo bit the swab. Orion tried to eat the vet's glove. Atlas just sighed. Results came back today. 100% Lynx rufus. 100% siblings. They share the same parents. The variation is just a genetic roll of the dice. Leo pulled the recessive red genes. Orion got the high contrast alleles. Atlas is likely expressing a dilution gene that washes out the pigment. We read the results to them. They didn't care. They were too busy fighting over a feather. We are approaching the end of our 100 days observation. The leaves on the oaks are starting to turn, bringing a crispness to the air that reminds us of the winter they were born in. A difficult decision had to be made. Usually, the goal of High Ridge is rehabilitation and release. We want to see tails disappearing into the brush, never to be seen again. But Orion, Leo, and Atlas have a problem. They love us. Because they were orphans at such a critical neonatal stage, less than 2 weeks old. And because they required such intense handling to survive the hypothermia and the fading syndrome, they are habituated. They don't fear humans. When they see a person, they don't hide. They chuff and approach, expecting food or interaction. In the wild, a bobcat that walks up to a human is a dead bobcat. Today, Sarah made the call. "They're lifers," she said, watching Orion try to untie her shoelaces through the fence. "We can't put them back. They wouldn't last a week." It is a sad moment for a rehabber, acknowledging that the wild is closed to them. But it is also a promise. We are their family now. Construction finished yesterday on the canyon habitat. It's a massive 2-acre enclosure with natural rock formations, tall oak trees, and a hidden stream. It is a palace. We moved the boys in today. The moment the crate doors opened was magical. Orion bolted out, a blur of spots, and immediately ran up a tree. Leo strutted out, chest puffed, claiming the entire 2 acres as his kingdom. Atlas walked out slowly. He tested the grass with a paw. He sniffed the wind. Then, he found a high ridge overlooking the whole enclosure, sat down, and watched the sunset. They looked small in the vast space, but they looked home. We close this chapter of the log with a realization. Despite their differences, the Red King, the Spotted Jester, and the Gray Ghost, they are a unit. They sleep in a pile, limbs tangled so thoroughly you can't tell where the red fur ends and the gray begins. They groom each other with rough, sandpapery tongues. They are a testament to the fact that family isn't about looking the same. It's about who you share your warmth with when the snow falls. The 100 days log ended, but life at the sanctuary continued. The boys grew. And boy, did they grow. Orion filled out, his chest broad and powerful, his spots stretching into elegant rosettes. Leo became a tank, a dense muscle of Rufus Fury who ruled the food trough. Atlas remained lean and lanky, a majestic, silvery observer who actually grew to be the tallest, if not the heaviest. They were happy bachelors. But every castle needs a queen. The sanctuary received a transfer from a facility in Montana that was closing down. Her name was Luna. She was a standard-issue bobcat, beautiful, tan with black spots, and possessing eyes that could cut glass. She was fierce, independent, and absolutely uninterested in nonsense. We introduced her to the boys slowly, through mesh. Orion tried to impress her by jumping off a rock. He missed the landing. Luna yawned. Leo tried to impress her by growling and puffing up. Luna hissed and swiped the fence. Leo cried and hid behind a bush. Atlas didn't try to impress her. He just sat by the mesh, quiet and respectful, blinking slowly. When we finally opened the gate for full integration, we held our breath. Bobcat introductions can be violent. Orion and Leo rushed over, eager to sniff the new girl. Luna boxed Orion's ears and chased Leo up a tree. The boys, terrified of this terrifyingly beautiful woman, stayed in the branches for 3 hours. Atlas, however, approached her with a low, friendly chuff. He didn't crowd her. He brought a piece of leftover quail and dropped it 5 feet away, then retreated. It was love. Within a week, Atlas and Luna were inseparable. The flashy brothers were relegated to the annoying brothers-in-law status. They were allowed to hang out, but if they got too rowdy, Luna would flatten her ears, and the boys would scatter. Atlas, the quiet gray ghost, had won the girl. Nature, even in a sanctuary, has a way of finding a path. Though we try to manage populations, birth control in felines is not an exact science, and life, well, life persists. It was a Tuesday, the air sharp and biting, hinting that another winter was on its way. Keepers noticed Luna hadn't come out for breakfast. Atlas was pacing in front of the large hollow log den in the back of the enclosure, chuffing softly. He looked agitated, his silvery tail twitching. Orion and Leo were sitting nearby, looking confused. They kept trying to approach the log, but Atlas would cut them off, standing broadside to block their path. The gray ghost had become the guardian. "Is she sick?" Sarah asked, grabbing the medical kit. "Let's go in." They entered the enclosure, moving slowly so as not to spook the cats. As they approached the den, Atlas stood his ground for a moment, then recognized Sarah. He let out a soft sigh and stepped aside. From the darkness of the hollow log, a sound emerged. Not a growl, not a hiss. A squeak, high-pitched and demanding. Sarah knelt down and peered inside. There, in the shadows, Luna was curled around a tiny, singular form. It was a kitten, just one. A singleton, rare for bobcats. Luna looked up, her eyes soft, tired, but proud. She gave a low rumble in her throat and nudged the tiny ball of fluff toward the entrance. The kitten tumbled out into the cold air, blinking against the brightness. It was impossibly small, with oversized paws and ears that were already trying to stand up. And the coat? It was a chaotic mix. The spots of the mother, but with a strange silvery gray undercoat that was unmistakably Atlas. This is where the fear set in for the staff. Male bobcats in the wild are solitary. They don't do daddy duty. They definitely don't do uncle duty. In fact, males can be a threat to cubs. "We might have to separate the boys," Dr. Marcus warned, his hand on the tranquilizer dart gun just in case. But before anyone could move, Atlas did something extraordinary. He chuffed, a deep, resonant sound of invitation. He looked at Orion and Leo, who were watching from a safe distance, eyes wide. Atlas chuffed again, louder. "Come." Leo, the fiery redhead, stepped forward first. He lowered his massive head, sniffing the tiny, squeaking creature. The kitten, fearless, swatted at Leo's nose with a paw the size of a dime. Leo didn't snap. He didn't growl. He sneezed. Then, remarkably, he began to lick the kitten's head, his rough tongue nearly knocking the baby over. Orion joined in next. The goofball of the family lay down on his stomach, flattening himself to be eye level with the kitten. He let the baby climb over his paws, chewing on his toes. It was a tableau that defied every textbook on feline behavior. 3 adult male bobcats, the gray father, the red uncle, and the spotted uncle, sitting in a row, guarding a single precious new life. 6 weeks later, the kitten, whom the staff named Nova, for a sudden bright star in the dark winter sky, was old enough to explore the wooden deck of the shelter structure. The first snow of the season had just begun to fall, dusting the world in white, bringing the story full circle. Sarah happened to be walking by with her camera. She froze. On the bench, the family had arranged themselves with accidental perfection. On the far left sat Orion, the spotted uncle. He looked regal, his dark rosettes sharp against his tawny coat, his eyes half closed in contentment. He was the fun uncle, the one who taught Nova how to jump on things he shouldn't. In the middle sat Atlas, the gray father. He was looking directly at the camera, his gaze steady and wise. His silvery coat shone against the fresh snow. He was the anchor, the calm center of their strange little universe. On the right sat Leo, the red uncle. His rufous coat was vibrant, almost orange, a fire against the ice. He sat tall, chest out, the protector. And there, on the far right, sitting slightly apart but looking up at the falling snowflakes with an expression of pure wonder, was Nova. The kitten had the gray-silver face of his father, but the heavy spotting of his mother and Uncle Orion. Nova looked tiny next to the giants, but he didn't look scared. He looked exactly like what he was, a bobcat who had inherited the strength of 3 kings. Sarah snapped the photo. When she looked at the image on the small screen, her eyes welled up. Years ago, 3 freezing kittens had arrived in a cardboard box pulled from a snowbank, dying. People said they looked too different to be family. People said they couldn't be saved. People said wild animals couldn't love. But looking at the 4 of them, spotted, gray, red, and tiny, sitting there in the falling snow, the truth was undeniable. They were a patchwork quilt of genetics, a mismatched set of survivors. But as Nova reached out a tiny paw to catch a snowflake, and all 3 giant heads turned to watch him with synchronized softness, you knew. They weren't just bobcats, they were brothers. And now they were raising the next generation together. All right, boys, Sarah whispered, wiping a tear from her cheek as she lowered the camera. You did good. Nova chirped, a high, clear sound that rose up into the cold air. Atlas leaned over and touched his nose to the kitten's ear. Orion yawned. Leo kept watch. It was a good day at High Ridge.